I just can't take no pleasure in killing. Just some things you gotta do. Don't mean you have to like.
I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
You want to know what happens to an eyeball when it gets punctured? You got any idea how much blood jets out of a guy's neck when his throat's been slit?
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
What up, everyone? DJ Anubis with my co-host, Mr. Tony of the Dead, with the Ghouls of Midnight. And we're back with another flick to talk about. And of course, if you're new to this channel, he and I, we alternate every week a movie to pick, and we review it, sit down with it, whether we've seen it or whether we haven't. And it's kind of a fun little thing to do. Now, obviously, we alternate between channels. So last week, my pick of The Kiss from 1988 is now up on his channel. I do add it to my playlist here, so you can go to either one. And of course, this time around, he has chosen 1998's The Curve. And our cast consists of, well, let me give you the director first, because I don't want to short sight them. But the director is Dan Rosen, And our cast of main characters are Matthew Lillard from the Scream franchise, at least one film, Michael Vartan, Randall Batinkoff, Keri Russell, Tamara Marie Watson, and of course the very lovely and talented Dana Delaney. Our plot is, and there's a couple of them, but I'm gonna give the one that's a little more expansive. Tim, Chris, and Rand are campus roommates. They are not the closest of friends. When it is announced as being usual to get the best possible grades as compensation for the psychic stress of a roommate's suicide or unliving. What do you call it?
Unalive.
Unalive, excuse me.
Yeah.
Tim and Chris decide to kill Rand. After Rand's suicide, his girlfriend Natalie takes her life too. She was a roommate of Chris's girl Emma, who's tricking who. So it's a very off the wall explanation. It's not very good.
No.
Basically, you have a group of guys who want to do better. One guy, Chris, is trying to get into Harvard, and so their plan is to have somebody unalive themselves and then go and like get the best possible grade because the school will offer them a 4.0 just because they're dealing with the sorrow and sadness of this person taking their life. So I want to know first, like, what about this film that drew you to want to watch it or review it?
Well, it's one that I wanted to revisit for a long time. I always in my head like pictured, like I was always like, this is a good movie. I don't know why. To my knowledge, I don't believe it's on Blu-ray. If it is, it's not in America, I'm pretty sure. But I don't think it's on Blu-ray, maybe DVD. I honestly didn't look into it, but I have it right here on VHS.
Very nice.
Previously viewed for $4.99. And
at the time, was that just like a blind pickup or?
I probably honestly picked it up because of Matthew Lillard.
Okay, yeah.
You know, I was like, I watched pretty much everything back then, and back then we had it wasn't me that hooked it up, but an illegal box that got all the channels. And so I was watching like this stuff like on like, you know, wherever it was on HBO or something. And it really just like, I'm like, oh, I like that a lot. Plus, I'm no stranger to wanting to unalive. So it kind of like resonates with me. But I just think the story is, you know, pretty cool. And I always just really, it always just stuck in my head that I really like it. And now I got to revisit it finally.
Yeah, I was watching another guy review this, and apparently it could have changed since then. I think he made that video a year ago. He said Rotten Tomatoes has this a 0%.
What? I think that's a little.
But he
crazy.
strongly pushed against it. He's like, this film is not that bad.
Okay, I was gonna say if he better not agree with that.
No,
I mean,
he did. He was taking big issue with it. He actually loves this film.
I mean, let's be honest. I don't think
it.
anything is a 0. There's shitty movies.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get that far. I mean, like even with the new Crow, it's probably a little bit higher than it should be. But I think that you can find some nice things about it. You know,
right.
So we have these characters, and we'll go. Rand is played by Batinkoff. He's kind of like this really big dickhead of the group. Like he's got this girlfriend, Natalie, who, like from the start when I'm watching him at that like cafe table eating, and he's like really berating her about because they're playing like some sort of trivia game or something.
Yeah,
and she doesn't really know the answers, and he's just like very derogatory and just insulting her and everything. And she's like this kind of nice girl, blonde girl. And so
Canadian.
I'm going to myself, what the fuck, dude? Someone just punched this guy in the fucking face already,
Yeah, Rand's a prick.
So we have also Lillard, who plays Tim, and Michael Vartan, who plays Chris, and they're there with Emma, of course, which is Chris's girlfriend, Keri Russell's character. And again, like they're all kind of just watching this unfold, and Natalie gets upset and walks away from the table, followed by Emma. And I don't know, these guys, man, like even though that description said they weren't the closest of friend, and maybe they really aren't, because by the time you get to the end of the film, you're like, what the fuck, But at the time you're thinking these are like the best buds ever. Like they just put up with their own bullshit, you know?
Yeah.
And so at some point, they're just we can kind of move it along a little bit to where Emma finds out, or not Emma, sorry, Natalie finds out that she's pregnant. She takes like a pregnancy test and she finds out that she's pregnant. So now she's got to deal with the stress of this because obviously Rand is like a huge prick, and how is he going to take it?
Yeah.
And we're at this party now off campus because they're all college students. So I should note at the beginning of this that there's a moment where Chris is talking with Dr. Ashley, played by Delaney. I'm assuming she's some sort of counselor, I guess. And so he's kind of explaining the storyline because we kind of go back and forth between present day and what's happening before that. And so one of the things I kind of agree with the other guy that reviewed it is you kind of see the only time you see Dana Delaney really, or her character, Dr. Ashley, is she's always sucking on something, whether it's a lollipop or a Twizzler, because she's trying to quit smoking or whatever.
Yeah.
And I kept trying to figure out like what is the story. I go like she looks so hot doing that.
Yeah. she I'll tell you what, man. Even if I didn't have problems, I'd make them up just to go into that office.
Oh my God, yes. I'm like, I need help.
Yeah. What's wrong?
Same time next week, right?
Yeah. Right. Oh my God. Yeah. I always thought she was hot, and I still think she's hot.
Yeah, I can't remember the movie, and I really want to look it up.
Well, her whole thing when you're watching the movies, you got to remember she's not going to tell even the cops if you told her something. Basically, like priests aren't allowed to do that either. Like you can commit to murder, but they're not allowed to go in. So she's keeping with this confidentiality, but she's kind of like not sure about things.
Yeah. And obviously the one place that I've seen her is in Tombstone. She was the actress in that film. So Josephine. But
I've seen her, but I don't remember.
Yeah, it's always hard to kind of remember because she's kind of disappeared from basically the radar, but she still looks great. Amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So we kind of bounce around between them talking to her, and also there's this other guy. I guess he's like another chancellor or something. He's always smoking the pipe and whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, Natalie finds out she's pregnant, and then they're at a party, and of course Rand, Tim, and Chris are playing drinking games or whatever, and they're just getting drunk as a skunk.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess the game is like where they're just hitting each other. It's so weird.
It's kind of the game they're playing is with I guess beer that's shaken up. Which ones are they?
Oh yeah.
And it's kind of like what do they call that? You spin the chamber, and they but they didn't
roulette.
do that.
Roulette.
Yeah, Russian roulette. But instead of a gun, they used they put it right to their head, and it was
a beer can,
a shaken up beer can.
Yeah.
I don't honestly know if that I get the beer cans could be gone, but a way they are in it, I don't know if that would be okay nowadays. Like they're like, you drink Mao. It's kind of like I don't know if that would with culture nowadays. You know what I mean? I have no problem with it.
Oh, you mean just the symbolism of it all?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Be insensitive.
Yeah.
Again, I've dealt with it, so I don't get butthurt because I understand it is an issue. And so, I just find that people, they get, again, we can go back and forth all day about how, people have a certain taste in movies regardless of what it is. So if you like what you like, that's fine, but don't try to dismiss people that like these films or don't have a problem with the content. It's just we understand everything about it. We're not dumb,
Yeah.
So they're playing this game, and Chris is always kind of like this straight-laced guy who's always thinking about going to Harvard. That's his biggest thing. Even so, he's having a hard time even getting excited for his girlfriend, which is almost impossible with Keri Russell looking as great as she does in this film.
Yeah.
But obviously that's a barrier between him and his girlfriend, but he's kind of like the straight-laced guy. Tim, of course, is played by Lillard, who I've heard a lot of comparisons to his character Stu from Scream. They're very similar in the way that they're being portrayed. He's very crazy. He does a lot of antics. He likes to instigate shit all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we start to learn that that's kind of like what he's doing throughout the film, pushing people in a certain direction. So, and it was really weird because, again, like for all the description about these guys not being close, there's literally 2 occasions in this film where Tim is actually kissing the girlfriends of other guys. I'm like,
Yeah,
what the fuck?
he's not a good friend. That's for
No,
damn sure.
no.
That's the
And
thing
so,
with I think the difference between his character in this and in Stumacher in Scream is that Stumacher seems just like a friendly party guy, typical teen, and you don't realize until the end and what he really is. But in this, he's just there's no there's no veil that you have to pull off. This guy's just something's up with him. He's weird, and from the very beginning, because how you said like he's talking to the counselor Dana Delaney, not him, but Chris
yeah.
is, and they're getting the list of like I think my roommate might want to unalive himself. What are the signs? And she's telling them like the music or like what to watch. So while he's getting this information, they're showing, like you said, a flash to them buying the stuff. So they're making it look like whoever is gonna like unalive themselves is obviously depressed,
Right.
and
Yeah, we know there's like some sort of game plan behind the
yeah,
scenes that they're working on.
because the very first thing you see is him checking grades,
Yeah.
and it's a B+, which makes it like that he won't be able to get into Harvard. And since that, they have this game plan to, well, Brand's an asshole. Let's make it look like he killed himself. Oh, I mean unalived. And then
Same thing.
yeah, I know. But just in case you're sensitive, we may not say unalive. We will
try our
say
best.
we'll
We'll
try
put it
our
that
best. And also, I let's point out for everybody watching this that like for some reason in the 90s, I don't know why unaliving yourself was so popular in movies and in life. I don't know. It just seemed like it was like a lot. So
Well, it should be noted that this film is in no way endorsing it. It's actually going
no.
it's going off an urban legend that schools will do this. Like if you lose a friend at school,
Yeah, your
that the
roommate
school
dies.
itself will give you. It's all urban legend shit. And of course, you had even the movie Urban Legend, which came around the same time that year. It's just, yeah, you said it, like during the 90s, there was a lot of these films putting out there.
Yeah.
In fact, it's so funny because the whole idea of the cliff here reminds me a lot of a Keanu Reeves movie called Permanent Record from the early 90s, which kind of deals with the same subject matter, only not in that sense. Like it's not using the GPA thing as part of that plot design, but it's all sensitive material. It's all part of the plan.
Yeah. But if you are thinking about it,
Don't do it.
There is help.
Yes.
I believe all you have to do is dial like 988 or something, and it's like a hotline. So, I just want to throw that out there for anybody who's like depressed and that,
Keep in mind, it's fiction. This is fiction.
Yeah, we're not. The movie deals with this, but like it's a real life thing. So I just wanted to like just throw it out there. We don't want our subscribers to unsubscribe themselves.
Right. Good call.
Thank you. But yeah, go ahead.
So so it comes down to Chris and Tim now. They're going to somehow get Rand to unalive himself. So basically at this party, Natalie approaches Rand and she's like trying to pull him away to tell him about the pregnancy.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, like I'm with my buddies and we're here and they can hear what you have to say. Like he's like such an asshole.
Yeah.
And she's like willing to kind of walk away and just do it later. But he's like, no, tell me what the fuck you want to say.
Yeah.
And so finally she just loses her shit and she's like blurts it out and everyone stops. And so now, like, he's like shocked. And then, of course, when Tim like mentions that, well, yeah, it's good that you told him, and it's like, wait a minute, you knew? And so now there's like this tension between the guys, and Chris, of course, tries to keep him from kind of like what he thinks maybe hitting her, like, you know, because he's moving closer to her.
Yeah.
So Chris
He
gets
already
in the
pushed
way,
her.
and
He pushed her
yeah,
already.
so
Yeah.
Chris tries to stop him, and then Grant punches him down, and then walks out. And basically, I guess he's like kind of like the school bully or whoever's there. Like nobody wanted to step in at all.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest room of pussies I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, he walks out, and you know, you just have this other moment where Tim and is checking on Chris, and they're okay. And so finally, we make our way outside to where this cliff is. It's for whatever reason by this school. Like we got this cliff, and everybody goes there to drink and get high or whatever.
Yeah.
And so Chris and Tim are walking up there, and Rand's there drinking and just chilling or whatever, and pissed off, you know, because he's trying to get into Harvard or somewhere else too. He's trying to get good grades to do whatever he wants to do. So now I think he thinks like his life's over because he's got to deal with this pregnant chick, right?
And they've only been together for 3.5 months, so it's
Right.
not like it's like 5 years and now
And
she's
it's funny
pregnant.
because during that cafe scene, he turns to him and says, "I think she's the one."
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck?
I love her so much.
Right.
No, you don't.
Oh my god, it was that dude. Like,
Yeah,
he was a good villain, man. He was a good villain in this.
Yeah.
So yeah, Tim and Chris walk up, and you know, they're trying to kind of make him feel better at ease. Like, it's funny how quick Chris got over the punch. Like, I'm just like, Jesus, dude, I would have been like still pissed.
Yeah.
But they start giving him some more booze, and at first they're getting something that he didn't think was tasted very good. I don't know what it was, but
They mixed to give the illusion that they were drinking too. They mixed water and lemon.
oh yeah, that's what he was like. Fuck
And that's
this.
where it's like, ugh. He's like, oh, sorry, try this one. And that was the real booze.
Right. And then, of course, all of a sudden, Rand starts like attempting to puke, and he passes out. And well, before he passes out, Tim like looks at him and says, "Well, how's that rat poison taste?" And then you're like,
Yeah.
shady shit going on." And he falls to the ground. And then there's a quick moment where Tim's like poking him, trying to figure out if he's still alive or whatever. And then, you know, Rand reaches up and grabs his neck, but then eventually lets go. And what we assume is dead. Like, we just figure he's dying.
Yeah.
And so now Chris is, of course, getting cold feet. He's like, I don't know if I really want to go through with this. You know, it's like, this isn't a good idea.
Yeah.
And Tim, he's doing the stew thing. He's like, nope, we got to keep going, man. He starts rolling him to the cliff.
Yeah.
And eventually pushes him over.
We should point out too that Tim is a prick to Chris like the entire time. Like, he's always like busting on his balls, calling him an idiot, and all that stuff. Kind of like Brand is to his girlfriend. Or Rand. I'm sorry, not Brand. I've called him Brand my entire life, and I know it's not right. But Rand, like, he, like, even in the beginning when they were playing that trivia game, like, it's kind of like, you know, what game is that where they're like, they ask you the questions, you try to get how many questions right in a row, and he's like, "You'll never be my partner again. Like, you're an idiot. Come on, use your head." And he's like tapping her on the head, and then
I know, he's like, dude.
Yeah,
like,
right away,
like,
you know, like
sports questions. And she was like, I don't watch sports.
Yeah, it's like that, and it's just some kind of little game. I think that was actually a thing back then too, because I think they incorporated into the movie, because I think a lot of people were doing like 20 questions type things, and they kind of, because I think it was kind of a weird random thing that put in the movie, but I sort of remember that being a thing back in high school, because this came out when I was a senior, and back then, like I said, this really resonates with me. There, you drink Mao. Feel like he's always slapping him. I always thought this part was weird too, the way he is, like the way Rand like talks to him, like, "You did it, kid. You could." But I think that part's funny too. He's like, fuck you. Come on. You're gonna die. Like, it was funny. It was like the only part that he was funny. But they also say he's popular. Everybody liked him and stuff. So maybe that's another reason why nobody
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
interfered.
obviously you've got like anything else, whether it's high school or college, there's cliques. And so like you find people that you kind of like would supposedly idolize, I guess, and make them the popular guys. And so that's probably where Rand is, and then the other ones as well, because they're just quirky and do their own shit, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
so
wish
one
I was
thing I
that
thought was kind
licorice.
of funny, one of the comparisons to like the cover that you showed, a lot of people thought that it was a little similar to I Know What You Did Last Summer. It had that kind of vibe on the cover there. Yeah.
A lot of the 90s covers looked like this.
Yeah.
Exactly like this. But I forgot what I was going to say. There was something I was going to say about it. It's also called Dead Man's Curve. That's
Yeah. So
another
there
name
is an
for it.
alternate title. If you ever try to look it up, don't be confused. There is two actual titles to this. So yeah, The Curve, which is on Tubi right now if you want to watch it.
Yep.
And then also Dead Man's Curve, which I didn't even really. I think I saw the title pop up. I just didn't think it was the same movie, so I didn't bother. But certainly, what you're seeing is just pieces from the trailer. It is available on Tubi as well if you just want to kind of get the lowdown of the trailer itself. But
to my knowledge, I don't think Tubi cuts anything. Like that is how I remember the movie, so I don't think they cut anything. So I think you're good to go.
well, Tubi is usually not that worried about stuff like that. In fact, a
Yeah.
lot of times I find that some of the movies they put in are actually either director's cut or extended version, which is kind of cool.
Well, I just know a lot of my friends that like put movies on there. They'll have like the nudity cut out or
Yeah, oh
something like
yeah.
that. So
Even on Tubi though?
yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Well, I guess we were talking about this the other day. I know I'm going off a tangent, but
That's okay.
when Kevin and I did Billy Jack, I have a collection of the movies for that series. And so when I watched it and we were kind of going through the review, I was like, I always felt that the one particular grape scene was more explicit. And then as I was reading, like apparently they did later on kind of like cut that down because I remember it in full craziness. Like it was much more visceral when I saw it as a kid.
Yeah.
So when I watched it again, like, man, this seems far more tame than I remember. But then I guess they did edit it out.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, because I have like which is basically a collection. So I don't know if I ever went back to find like an original copy of the DVD, if it would be the full version or not, or uncut version. It might be, but
Right.
it didn't really phase me until we started talking about it. I was like, I always remember this being far more destructive and like, because grape scenes to me are very disturbing to me. Like I have a problem watching it on film, even if it's just fake.
Yeah.
I don't like violence against women like that, even though I watch a lot of horror, but that's kind of different because sometimes it's so absurd.
Yeah.
But the reality is that when you're down with like serious subject matter like that, it's like, wow, But anyway, maybe that's the case with some of these. I don't know. But in this case, you said it was pretty much the way you remember
Yeah,
it.
it's exactly how I remembered it. So yeah, I don't think there's many sensitive things in it that they would cut. So
Right. Yeah. It's kind of tame in comparison to some stuff. So
yeah.
So Tim pushes Rand over, and then of course now we're dealing with the aftermath where they can't find him, and of course people are asking Tim and Chris questions about when's the last time they saw him. They're like, Natalie takes it very hard, despite all the shenanigans that Rand would pull on her. She's like very distraught, like she's just down.
Yeah.
And so eventually she you think she's going to go back to Canada. That's where she's from initially. So
Yeah, she says she's leaving.
Yeah. And so because she's also Catholic and something else, there was something else that someone mentioned, and that was something that was a problematic thing for her to be pregnant. So it was another big thing for her. But so she's planning on leaving, but instead she goes to the cliff at night where Rand supposedly died. Now, granted, they never found a body. They don't have his body.
And that's the whole point to the 4.0. It's like they can't really get the 4.0 unless you find the body. So they're just waiting for it to like wash up.
I mean, of course, when presented this initially, Tim and Chris are like, well, Tim's like, we can't do that. That's wrong, man.
Mhm.
Even though that's what their ultimate goal is. He's like, we can't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she ends up going to the cliff at night and she has her little suitcase and then she just jumps off. So
Yeah.
now we have someone that really did unalive themselves, at least a body.
Yeah.
So now things are starting to spiral out of control because Chris is like, fuck, dude, like what's going on? Like this is not good.
Yeah.
You know?
Like things are starting to unravel in a
I can't remember. How did Emma take this with her? Like, I don't remember that.
Well, she was upset because it was her roommate, like they all were like, oh God, how, because I don't honestly think that wasn't in the plans. They didn't think that was going to happen. And like, I think they actually, I don't think they cared about, like, I don't think Tim cared about her, but like the plan wasn't for her to, do that. And he's just like, oh, like that sucks, and
It should be mentioned too. There was a scene prior to Natalie doing what she did, where they're at like a bar or something, and Tim starts recalling this story about Rand
yeah.
hiring a prostitute to go to prom with him, and so it's a very weird and out of place scene, but
yeah.
the way it just goes back to what you said about Tim's cruelty. Like he's unaware, or he is kind of aware. He's doing things to intentionally provoke people.
Yeah.
And obviously, this is just destroying Natalie. Like she's in tears, and even though I don't think they were together at the time, it's just like she doesn't want to hear this kind of shit about Rand when he's gone.
Yeah. Well, they were drinking to his memory, and he just tells the story because supposedly they knew Rand since like 5th grade. So that's why it's like they're good friends, but they kind of don't really appear as like they do, but they don't. They're like, my friend's an asshole, but he's my asshole kind of thing. And
I'm the only one that gets him.
Right. And I think that's why they put up with each other's shit with the slapping in the face and all that kind of stuff, like men stuff. You can't be a man, take that slap.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're drinking and he tells that story about the prom and how he's like this fat fucking bucktooth, like it makes it sound like so disgusting. And he thinks it's a funny story, but she's just like, oh my God. And they're like, what the fuck's wrong with you? But and then not long after that is when she kind of is like, fuck this. And she has a suitcase and everything.
Yeah, that was what I found was really odd. I was like, why bother with the suitcase? Like,
yeah, unless it was like really last minute. Like
that's the only thing I can think of is like she just decided at the very last second to say fuck this and just go over there.
Yeah, because why pack?
Right,
you can't take it with you.
Exactly. So yeah, so now they've got her because of course the boats are out there and they find her. And I can't remember how they fucking even knew that she had done that. Like, I guess they were still searching for Rand when they got her. Like, they just ended up coming off the body, but it wasn't Rand; it was her.
Yeah.
So now things start to really kind of like veer off course a little bit. Because now that I think she, being Emma, can now use that as a way to get a 4.0 because it was her roommate.
Yeah.
But now we're like thrust into like a scene now where obviously we talked about Chris and Emma having struggles with their intimacy and the relationship a little bit. So now we find Tim and Emma in at the bar, and they're drinking and laughing and giggling, and then all of a sudden they're kissing. And then all of a sudden he's taking her back to the room, his room, I guess.
It's hers.
It's her room. Okay, yeah. So he found a way to like get in there, put candles up and roses and spruce it all up, which I think was originally for her boyfriend. I think that was
he had told the boyfriend because he said like they're fighting, they broke up. He said, here's what you do: get all these candles and stuff, make it look beautiful, make it look really nice, hide in the closet. I'll take her out for a few drinks, bring her back, and then you can come out of the closet and show your love. But he knows he's in the closet, and she's drunk, and he takes advantage of that, and she just like starts making out with him. All the whole time, Tim knows that Chris is in the closet looking, and
Yeah.
she slides down to put his in her mouth, and
Yeah.
then that's such a cool part too, because it's just like he's just staring at the closet like
And
evilly
smiling.
and smiling, and well, then
But it's
Rand,
so funny
or not
because I
Rand,
was
I'm sorry.
looking at this and I think, one thing about Tim's character is I think he likes to expose people for their faults.
Yeah,
Because it's almost like he was saying to himself, I'm going to prove to you that your girlfriend would fuck me. That's basically what he was saying.
yeah.
Because she didn't even hesitate. Like, this made me like really angry towards her because I'm like, what the fuck?
Like you just broke up with your boyfriend. She
Right.
blames the alcohol,
Right.
but the alcohol isn't making you want to go down on your knees.
Yeah.
That's in your brain.
Yep. So, yeah. So basically, he comes out of the closet at this moment when she's giving it her all,
Yeah.
on Tim. And I forget what he said, but he's like, I'm out of here. And like,
He just walks
Tim,
out. He
yeah,
just
Tim
walks out,
starts to
just looks
follow
at
him in the
them.
corner. She's on the floor wiping her mouth. Like, oh shit.
Because she didn't know he was in there. She's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And so he kind of like goes through this like weird scene where it's like he's walking around like upset, and like he's sitting down, and it's like raining in the background, and like she shows up and she wants to talk to him, and he's like, don't fucking touch me.
Yeah.
And I always thought this part was like kind of like he goes, fuck you. And she just kind of looks at him like, are you really? And I'm thinking, yeah. He goes, I literally caught you with my roommate's dick in your mouth. Like, and she's like, I was drunk. He got me drunk. It's like, no excuses, you know? But then they start talking about Rand's,
Well, the thing
death.
that got me about that scene, and I'll let you go on after, but the thing
Yeah.
that got me was she immediately, like, when she found out he was in the closet, she was like, well, why are you in the closet? And so it's like she was trying to turn around on him as if
Yeah.
he was some part of this big ploy
Yeah.
to catch her in the wrong. And it was like, no, it was supposed to be like a surprise for her. But, and of course, then she starts spitting out this shit about Tim and how he said that Chris is the one that, like, murdered Rand or something. And so, like, it starts into this whole thing. So I'll let you keep going with that.
Oh yeah, she's like talking to him like, wait, why were you in there? Like you said, and he's not like really saying, he's like not like whatever, it doesn't matter. And she's like, did Tim tell you to do that? She's like, he told me that he thinks that you killed Rand, and it goes from there. But and if you flash back more, which we kind of missed, we said that they were talking to the authorities, and that during the interview, Chris is kind of like on edge. He's like nervous. You could tell, really, really like, and then Tim is kind of like treating it like, not like he did in the office. In the office, he like was crying and upset and like, I don't want the 4.0. You take advantage of the situation, making it look like Chris is like okay with all this, and he's not. And then it's just the complete opposite at this point, and the cops are interviewing them, which the cops are like funny in a way, like they're like hard ass cops.
Yeah.
And they think something's up. They could tell right away. And Tim is just making jokes and and then he kind of says like, well, you ran after him, did you? He's like, oh. So he's making it sound like it was Tim that or Chris's idea for all, not that they know what the idea was, but like he's adding shit to the story that didn't happen to make the cops look at him instead of Tim, instead of himself. And he even gets a ride to class with the cops, and he's on first name basis with them. Like, so he has the cops' trust, which is another thing that Tim does, because he's very charming. He might be an asshole, but if you know how Matthew Lillard's character is in Scream and all that, that's where the Stumacher comes out.
Well, one of as we get to towards the end of this, obviously one of the things about this film with that character Tim is that he truly believes he is the smartest man in the room.
Oh yeah, he said he has well, that happens with the police and everything. So he's like, he made Chris like look like a suspect, and because he wasn't even on their radar, it was just like, where have you seen him? Blah blah. But anyway, then what did you just say? That, and I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Well, just that, she basically, when they were talking, she's explaining to Chris that Tim was telling her that he was responsible for Rand, and it's like,
Yeah,
that's sort of some of the problems with the film, is that it kind of like story wise or script wise kind of like jumps to places that it probably shouldn't jump right away to. Like there's more expansion on some of the other stuff, but obviously, and this is kind of where I kind of lost the film a little bit, just in terms of remembering. But I know that, yeah. So I know that after this, we start going down the path now where the trust factor between Chris and Tim is starting to fall apart. And so there's a scene where they're in the room, and literally Tim is like pointing a gun at Chris, like, because he doesn't want Chris to fucking ruin it, by talking to the cops or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just becomes this weird point where the last thing I remember, you can fill in the blanks for me. They all end up at the cliff again at late at night, and it's Chris, Tim, and Emma. And so they're all kind of standing there, and like all of a sudden, well, go ahead. If I miss something, go ahead.
Well, going back to the part where they're in the room together, the reason he has the gun is that he's like making it like he's going to shoot himself. He's like, we can't find the body. Somebody has to do it. So he was going to do it. So he's like, no. And he tells this story about how he likes to push people and see what he can do and get them to do what he wants, and how far he can push them, and they still want to be his friend. So that's like his whole motive to what he does. And then he admits that the story he told about Rand was actually about him. He took the prostitute to the prom and all that. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. But it's like trying to make it like even though I just set you up, had your girlfriend put my dick in her mouth.
Yeah.
I have an excuse for it, and this is why. And Chris kind of like, I don't think he believes him. I think he's just like, yeah, this guy's fucked up. He's going to try to blame me for this stuff. He's not my friend. We got to do something about it. So but what Tim doesn't know is he's recording all this. Chris is recording all that. And this was a whole plan by him and his girlfriend to, like, let's get this evidence, and that way you're not on the, you're off the hook. So then they go to the cliff, and Chris meets what's his girlfriend's name? Amy. Emma. Yeah. He meets Amy was the other, was the kiss. He meets Emma there, and she's like, you got the tape? He's like, yeah. And then the plot thickens. And who comes out of the shadows but him? And he's reading a pig note. Suey pig note. And
is it Tim or is it Rand?
No, this is Tim at this point. He's reading it. And then at this point, Chris realizes, I've been double crossed. And you see her go over by Tim. She's been in on it basically the entire time. And she's in it on the entire time. And Chris realizes, oh crap, this is like turned around on me now. Like, I got double crossed. And then it plot thickens even more. And who's hiding in the shadows?
Good old Rand.
And it's like,
the
what?
guy we thought was dead.
Yep. And he comes out, and so you see these three had this plan the whole time. And well, I don't think well, they kind of were planning on hoping. I think they hoped that her roommate would jump or do something, and then she did, because turns out the pregnancy was actually a lie.
Right.
And Emma was in on it from then too.
Yeah.
And this is where, when you think about it, you're like, well, they're talking about he's setting you up, and it's like there's a whole scene like at the cafe where they're talking, and that's where he's saying like, well, it's kind of funny, right? He wants to get in, he gets a bad grade. Oh, why not? Let's have your roommate do this, but they make it that they don't realize that the Dana Delaney's listening in a chair, and being that she can't say anything, she's like, oh shit. I never thought of that. And so now she's suspect to this, like, but she can't say anything. Go to this scene now, and like I said, everything's unraveling, and now they want, because obviously Rand's gonna make an appearance that he's alive. Emma's is gonna get the 4.0 because this is a real thing. They didn't know if it was real. They say they didn't know, but I think if they did, they kind of didn't know, and they just tested it. But because they heard about it from a comedian on like HBO, so it was like a theory, and then here the theory's true, and
I think that's how they want it, because like, again, like you just said, if Emma's in on it,
yeah,
if it's only about your roommate, they have to, because Chris, Tim, and Rand were all roommates in the same room, but that left Emma out. So in order for her to get the same benefit, she would have to have her roommate do the same thing.
Right. And they pushed her to the point of it, I think, and that's another reason Rand was very cruel toward her, to make her feel like complete shit, especially after she was lied to and she thought she was pregnant. She was just I can't even imagine how low she felt. Like, she probably felt bad for yelling at Rand, even though she shouldn't have. But like, at that point, she was just like, okay, I fuck this, and did what she did. And then now Emma has the 4.0. And so, like I said, they're all approaching him, and you know what they want him to do. So you can go ahead from there.
So yeah, so Rand, Tim, and Emma are all kind of like walking towards him as Chris is backing up towards the cliff. So and at this point, Chris has the gun, and so, you know, obviously Tim's like, just do it, man, because either way you're gonna go to jail or whatever. For, you know, they're gonna use the fact that they still can't find Rand to say you just killed him, like, and you know, they don't need the body, they're just gonna accuse you. So Chris, like, I felt bad for him, but then I didn't, because he was just such a pushover all the time. But we kind of get to a point where we understand why. And so he goes and he literally tries to unalive himself with a gun, but it's full of blanks. So now the only other option is, Tim's like, well, I guess that's not going to work. And so the plan is now to have him just basically jump.
They're like going to force him.
But since the gun didn't work, you know, Tim is all confident. He's like, yeah, you have no other choice, man. This is it. And then Chris goes, well, is it the only choice I have? And then all of a sudden we see Rand, and he's literally taking the gun and putting real bullets in it. And Tim's like,
what are you doing?
Yeah, what the fuck? You know, like, now things are getting weird again, because even Emma's looking a little bit like, what the hell? So now Chris confidently walks over by Rand, and he's like, yeah, it's not going to be me that's going to be dying today. It'll be you. And so Tim, though, again, this is where I brought up, like, where Tim thought he was like basically the smartest man in the room, and he is coming to the realization that he's been outwitted, because Chris has known about Rand the entire time, and he's known about Emma and Tim, because Emma kept saying I was with Tim the entire time, but this is something Chris knew. And this explains probably not so much that he was so worried about Harvard. It's just that, you know, how do you want to be with a girl that's not really with you? So there's this like barrier, but he can use that Harvard as being stressed out. So he played his part well.
The Harvard thing is real. I think,
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
I think they really,
I just know for me, if I had this ultimate plan about things and I knew my girl was being deceitful, but I
yeah,
had to keep the charade up, it would still become I still couldn't, I'd have a hard time getting
yeah,
aroused for that, you know?
yeah.
So I'd have to find like a really definite reason. And, he was always stressed about the Harvard stuff. So it
Yeah.
does play a very good alibi.
If he wouldn't have got a B plus, I don't think the plan would have came through. But
Then you have to wonder if he was kind of maybe just purposely doing it. I don't know.
yeah, because when he's talking, Chris and Tim are talking. Tim is like, I fucking hated Rand. I always hate him, but really, everybody hates him. Rand hates him. Chris hates him. Emma's apparently fucking him, but they have the plan together. And then that's what, like you said, like Chris is like, oh shit, these three are in it from the beginning. And then, like you said, I don't know how he could keep a straight face knowing your girlfriend. I think he just kind of like was like, this is part of the plan. It sucks, but like, we got to make Tim look like he's manipulative and in charge and shit. And he probably knew his girlfriend was screwing him the whole time. And then when, like, with Rand, I like that part where he's like, what are you doing? Putting bullets in the gun. And then and Chris goes, I forget where he says, but he goes, hey Rand, how was wherever he like went off to?
Oh yeah, it was like a vacation or something.
He's like, fucking sucked. I forget how he says, like, it's like too much something. And then like in Matthew Lillard's character, he's like, what the hell? And Keri Russell's like you said, like, what's going on? And here, like, that's when Tim realizes, like, we're going to switch it around.
Yeah.
And
so now
they want to kill him instead, because I think Chris and Rand, I keep doing that. Rand are actually good friends from 5th grade, and they hate Tim.
Well, and I think that's the thing.
Obvious.
I think at some point, Tim approached Chris, because Chris probably is generally a nice guy, but we see throughout the film that Chris is kind of like the punching bag almost for everybody, at least in terms of the impression we get.
Even when he's getting interviewed with the cops, he's like,
right.
Makes
but
him
he's very
suspicious.
smart. That's the thing that people underestimate about him. But I think Tim approached Chris and said, look, we need to get rid of Rand, because Rand is like a dick.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, Chris probably went to Rand and said, this is what this motherfucker wants to do.
Yep. That's what I think too.
So anyway, Emma's on the side. She's like, does have no idea what's going on. Tim's catching on very fast. He's like, these two have been plotting against me.
Yep.
So even to the point that now Tim is like, so he's doubling down. He's like, dude, you can't shoot me. It's not suicide that way. It's not going to work.
It's not going to look like a suicide.
Right. He's like, you guys are fucking morons. And then they're like, well, not necessarily. And they walk up and basically just shove him over the cliff like he's done.
And they do it in a funny way too. He's like, oh shit. He's right.
Yeah.
And then he's like, and then you're splash.
And then
but
and turn around. This is basically where Chris gets to have his revenge on Emma.
Yeah.
Well,
where did they put the note? This is why I can't remember it. Did they put it on him, or did they put it by the cliff?
I think it's by the cliff somewhere. Because the other note they had was the one that they were going to use for Emma if she didn't go along with the Cocteau plan. So they turn around, and of course now Chris is pulling out her note and said, well, you can either get on board or the alternative to this. And she's like terrified. Like she got played hard.
And they don't let you know right away if she took it or not. Like, it's like,
right.
Are you in or out? Like, this is like literally life or death. And the whole time this story is unraveling, Rand is talking to Dana Delaney's character. And at this point, she's like, this is all bullshit, but she can't say anything because she's like, So where were you? And Rand is telling the story about how he was upset and he left the note there and he went away and he wanted everybody to just kind of feel bad. And whatever. And she's like, but you left the note. He's like, I was drunk. I forgot all about it. So that's his excuse. And at this point in time, he's like, maybe I'm jinxed. I mean, two roommates, like two people I know are doing this, So at this point, Tim, we saw get pushed over the cliff. So now everybody knows that he's. I guess they don't say it, but I guess they did find his body.
Yeah.
They just kind of skip it. You just kind of assume, because everybody knows that Tim is dead, and he's looking out the window, talking about like, oh, my roommates and stuff, and then this is where it flashes to the cliff again. Like, did she take it or not? And it's a cool little scene. He's like looking out the window at the what do they call that at a college? The courtyard.
It's like the center part. Yeah, courtyard. Yeah.
And he opens up the curtain real slow, and you just see Chris and Emma walking by together. So she took the deal. I would have too.
Well,
my luck, I'd jump off and I wouldn't die. I'd just be down there going,
I mean, I'm not shocked that she took the deal, but I am kind of surprised that, like, I'm surprised that Chris would still want to be with her, because she did deceive him pretty hard. But maybe that's just him saying, I got you where I want you. And I'm smarter than you, so you're not going to try to fuck me over.
I also think, too, he was smart enough to know that she would take the deal, because if she jumped, they made her jump too, I think that would bring more suspicion to him.
Oh, yeah.
So your girlfriend jumped and your roommate? So I think he knew she was going to take the deal.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I mean, the biggest loser, obviously, is Natalie. Like, she's the one innocent person that wasn't a
poor
part of the whole
Natalie's like a sweet girl, and she just ended up getting into this shitty plan.
Yeah.
I don't think they meant for her to do what she did. I think they just wanted to make it so like it set Rand up. That was Tim's idea.
Yeah.
But
I have no doubt like they all kind of grew up together. So like, clearly the reason why they really don't like Tim is, one, he does this kind of stuff where he instigates shit, but two, I'm pretty sure that Chris knew early on that he was fucking with Emma. And so like, it's kind of like they just, when Tim approached Chris about the whole having Rand commit suicide, like, I think that was when he was like, all right, we're going to get this guy. Like, this guy's a douchebag.
Yeah.
And he's really kind of like not the guy that they really want to be around. Like, he's just not very likable.
Yeah.
So what are your final thoughts, and what is your ranking of this out of 10?
Oh, out of 10. Well, for me, I think it still holds up. I still really like the movie. I think Matthew Lillard's character is like awesome. Not like in a good way, but like I think he does such a good job. I think everybody did a good job. I don't really think there was any bad acting, to be honest. The cops were a little over the top, but like it worked. You know what I mean? Like they work. I don't know. I don't. It's not a 10 out of 10 for me. But I would say, honestly, it's probably about 8.5 out of 10 for me. Like, I still really like this. I want to own it. And this was the judgment. Like, if this sucks to me now, I'm not going to be getting it. And now I want it. I want to see interviews nowadays with them, and I want to see what happened.
That's the great thing about a lot of the Blu-rays and stuff that come out through like either Vinegar or Shout Factory. Like, they oftentimes have bonus behind the scenes interviews and stuff. Those are the things I like, because it's kind of neat to go back and hear the thought process of how they felt about the story, and how they conveyed it. It's funny because initially coming in, I was going to really destroy the shit out of this film.
No.
But that's the thing, like, as you talk through it a little bit and kind of like understand more, like, I would like, when we talked about like remakes, I would like to see this rebooted, mainly because The only issues I have here is that the story's a little combobulated and it's not as coherent as it should be. Could be a
Yeah.
budget thing.
Yeah.
Actors were fine. Like they're all very good actors. I had no issue with that at all. It is a very good story. I do find that there's some plot holes in there that you kind of need some filler in. Like we need a little bit more.
Mhm.
Probably could have been good with another 15 or 20 minutes of like some backstory or filler in there somewhere. But overall, so what initially was something that I probably wasn't going to really rank high. I'm going to give it an 8. I do think it's very good.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm glad you liked it then, because
Yes. Yeah. It's
I
decent.
always get
I don't know
nervous
how many
with
times I
recommendations.
watch it because like when I see this character with Lillard, like he's a national treasure as an actor. I love him.
Mhm.
But I've seen this character before with Stu. Like, but they are a little bit different in presentation, but they kind of act the same.
And this is what, like 2 years after Scream?
Yeah, and it's around the same time he did Hackers, which is another fantastic film that he's in. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's better than I thought it was. Really, it is.
Well, what
It's definitely not a 0. I would never give it like that
No.
score.
Rotten
So I think
Tomatoes
that's a bit ridiculous.
Rotten Tomatoes, I don't trust that thing at all. Like, I think that's like for negative people.
Well,
Rotten Tomatoes.
I like it. I use it a lot for how I kind of base the vibe.
Sure.
But I can't. But I take it with a grain of salt because there are a lot of like nonsense that goes within people's reviews. Like I see constantly, whether it's pro or negative, they're like one line, like this is a great movie. I'm like that tells me nothing. That's an idiot, like, or
Yeah.
vice versa, where it says this is just shit. I'm like, okay, well, give me reasons why.
Yeah,
Like,
why don't you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next week, as you and I talked about, we will be doing another 1998 film. I saw that in the theater. It's Strangeland by Dee Snider from
Yeah.
Twisted Sister, and it's actually based off his character and song Captain Howdy, which is fun, which is also written initially about The Exorcist and Megan's friend in that one. But I haven't seen this in quite some time. I actually think I have this on VHS somewhere, to be honest.
I used to have this, I think, on VHS, but I couldn't tell you if I have it or where it is. I shouldn't say I know where everything is. I'm pretty sure I don't have it anymore. But like, yeah, this like I said, I watched a lot of movies in the 90s, and because it was renting all the time and all that stuff. And this was one of them that I saw back then, and I haven't seen it since, but I have a good memory of it, and I hope it doesn't suck now to me. But the funny thing with these movies is like you can always see how it was happening back then. Like at the time, like I said, with The Curve, there was a lot of movies that like were all about unaliving or like the thought of it, stuff like that. So it was like a real hard time, and that was real. I remember being in school and there were, stuff like that. And the thing with Strangeland is like the like, I don't know what they were using, was like ICQ or AIM or like one of those kind of like the chat rooms. I don't think really
Yeah,
people
it was
do that anymore.
basically predators through the internet, and so
Yeah.
But I remember like a lot of the body horror that's in it.
Yeah.
Even, you got Robert Englund that's in it. His role is kind of funny in that. I like the story. I think if it's gonna fail or not age well, it's probably because the acting from Snyder himself or somebody else might be not as top notch as you'd want.
Yeah.
But I do remember at the time seeing it in the theater, I was pretty pleased with it at the time that I bought it. I was like, this is pretty good. I did a good job.
Is the main cop in it, is he the guy from Joyride?
That I don't know.
Or
I don't
the Mangler is like that guy that says like, "I want to speak to Candy Cane," like that guy. I think that's the guy. He's from the Mangler as well.
Let me see what we got here.
And if I could say, usually we say like, "Oh, I didn't care about anybody in the movie." And,
oh shit! They even have a young Amy Smart in there. I didn't even know that.
Oh, there you go. But like in The Curve, you're not really supposed to like anybody. You know,
No,
and that's
and you'll come
okay.
out like feeling disgusted because but you're not rude for any of them
No.
at all.
You might feel a little bad for Chris because it's like, even though what happened, it's like now he's getting set up and he didn't want to do it. So it's like, but even then, I never felt bad for anybody.
Well, they take you through. It's how they do it. They take you through these phases where you're like, "Fuck, man, Chris is getting so fucked over."
Yeah.
But then by the end of it, you're like, "Wait a minute, he's just as bad, if not worse, than all."
Yeah, he's
been
just
setting this
quiet.
shit up from the beginning.
Well,
But
like
you don't
Anthony
feel
said,
bad
right?
that Tim's gone because he's a piece of shit.
Yeah. It's like Anthony said, right, the other day. He's like the most dangerous man in the room is the quietest.
Yep.
So.
Yep. So anyway, thank you for joining me today. It was great. Going to learn to appreciate a new movie I had not seen at all until recently. So that was good. And then for the rest of you, hit the like button, subscribe, please. Go check out this man's channel, Mr. Tony the Dead. Hit and like and subscribe that channel as well. Yeah, we have a problem with the pointing here. And we'll see y'all next time on the Ghouls of
Yes.
Midnight.